Hello, everyone. I'm Gustavo Tolosa, your host for the online book club. And it's always nice to see everyone logging in. I hope that you received my emails that I've been sending out. I sent out an email with a link to download one of Dr. McDougall's wonderful books. And even though it's been written about 16 years ago, it's all already, even today, what he says and what he writes in that book is up to date. Things have not changed much in many areas of medicine. And so I hope that you will download it. There is a code that you type in, and then you have to click to go to the card so you can get the discount and pay $0, and then you can download it. And that is one of the books that I'm featuring in our next book club. And I also sent you the link so that you can register for that book club that is coming up. And I also sent you a link to register and attend for free one of the most really well put together, wonderful, full packed of information summits, the GI Summit. This is a topic that it's today, it's so relevant. And you can watch the whole summit for free. And Dr. McDougall will be talking in it along with many other doctors and people that are just experts like Chef AJ and many others. So I hope that you will take advantage of that. And let's get started because we have a lot to cover. I want to thank everybody for being here and to wish all of you a wonderful, wonderful week together with your family and friends with Thanksgiving. And I will see you next Monday. It will be our last session, but there is an extra one on December 2nd in which Dr. Goldhammer will be talking with us. So make sure you write that down. I will remind you in the email. So let's go to our book. And let's see here. We are in chapter 10, which is called The Path of Least Resistance. And another magnificent chapter here. We will go to page 110 in my electronic version here. And this is where Dr. Lyle says that the third component of the motivational triad is often the most influential, which is overcoming the hidden force of this third and final component, which is energy conservation. This is something that we are often negligent about, and we don't think of this very powerful part of the motivational triad, and it's the energy conservation. And it's for many the single most difficult challenge in escaping the pleasure trap. I'm on page 111, and it says, using shortcuts is greatly rewarded in nature. Thus, the tendency of all animal life to use shortcuts. It's not a surprise. Wonder then that as McDonald's and other fast foods have proliferated, our modern dietary choices have become dominated by the energy conservation mechanism, together with the rest of the motivational triad. When hungry, that is, we are in pain, our population consistently seeks out the quickest, most calorically concentrated, and easiest food-seeking alternative. This means fast food. No behavioral scientist could realistically expect otherwise. This is why also supermarkets organize their merchandise so that the low profit items are located at the back of the store. The high profit items that you don't, that you really didn't go there to buy, are located where it takes almost no effort to find them, right at the register. This is why they're called impulse items. It takes a minimum of effort to purchase them. Business success often depends upon designing a path of least resistance. This is also why it is difficult to get young trick-or-treaters to use sidewalks on Halloween night. In their feverish pursuit of candy-coated pleasure, youngsters are driven by the energy conservation mechanism to cut across your lawn and lay waste to your flower beds, taking the most efficient path to acquiring dopamine-stimulating treats. So let's talk about the easy way on page 113. The dietary pleasure trap has achieved full force in American culture in the last few decades as tasted but unhealthy food has become the norm. To refrain from joining friends, family, or co-workers in this gustatory pastime is to invite social conflict, and we know that. To eat a diet of whole natural foods is to risk being viewed as antisocial. It is also correctly viewed as a significant hassle. It is difficult to argue with these ease and efficiency of the fast food drive-through, the frozen TV dinner, or the phone order pizza. Our ancient energy conservation mechanisms are alive and well in the modern mind and greatly influence daily decisions in human affairs. The easy way is to accept this situation and to hope for the best. Unfortunately, the easy way is no longer the best way. Things have changed in our environment. The path of least resistance is no longer the smart move, as the world for which that strategy was designed no longer exists. Should we desire to defend our health and maximize our life experience, we must now act in ways inconsistent with our instincts. To do so is not an easy task, but with preparation, we can improve our odds and protect our physical and psychological integrity. So here, Dr. Lyle and Dr. Goldhammer will give us some strategies to avoid the pleasure trap. So let's see what you're saying here. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the link to the book. Okay, thank you, Gustavo, for doing book club. It's such a gift. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Good. Oh, thank you very much. Dr. T is just fabulous. He has a very caring heart. Okay, well, thank you. I really care that this message that we're talking about here is heard. So please help me by forwarding the free, all of these videos and the cooking demos and all that to people you think might interest them. All right, so let's talk about the strategies, which is something that is always welcome. Strategy number one, which I think is one of the most powerful for all of us, is no junk food in the house. Why? Well, because we know what happens. As Chef AJ says, if it's in the house, it's in your mouth. It will end up there sooner or later. So no junk food in the house. If we keep enticing high fat, high sugar, drug like foods in the home, they will wind up inside of us. The key is not to demand perfection. And I like that. The key is not to demand perfection, but simply to put resistance in the path of transgression. Yes, putting resistance. So let's see. Make it necessary to go out for such items if you don't have them in the house. You see, we have also often observed that even if our clients are able to control themselves with junk in the house, its presence can be mentally exhausting. With pleasure-seeking instincts tugging away, and with an open path of little resistance, it can be taxing to constantly battle the question of whether or not to indulge. Strategy number one is the most important tool we have discovered: no junk food in the house. Strategy number two, the weekly menu. So, what do they urge, Dr. Lyle and Dr. Goldhammer in True North? What do they urge their clients is to invest the time to make a plan that will increase their efficiency and therefore their compliance. We estimate that making a good plan will require a weekend to accomplish. That's why many of us use a weekend or at least a Sunday or a Saturday to prepare food for the week. The steps are simple. Begin by identifying health-promoting recipes for foods you like to eat on a regular basis. And this is important because if you don't like these foods, then chances are you're not going to eat them. So next, you can compile a 7-day menu that lists all of your meals, leaving some slots open if you eat some of your meals away from home, which I personally don't recommend. Do all the possible and the impossible to avoid eating out. It can be helpful to have the same items on the same day each week, and I think this is a good strategy. This reduces the mental energy involved in deciding what to cook on a given evening. For example, you might have vegetarian tostadas on Tuesdays with leftovers for lunch on Thursdays. If the concept of eating your favorite meals in a weekly rotating fashion seems too constricting, you can always have a second weekly menu or even a third. But this is part of the preparation and the planning. I think it really helps. Most of us don't eat 40 or 50 meals a week that are all different. We eat a lot of meals during the week, of course, at least 3 for most of us. So at least 20, 3 meals a day times 7 days a week. That's 21 meals theoretically. We don't eat 21 different recipes. We tend, human beings, to eat the same thing. I mean, we like something, and it may be oatmeal for breakfast, or it may be roasted veggies, but you're not going to have 7 different breakfasts. Strategy number 3: cook in quantity, and I personally cannot underline this more than it's already done here. It is so important, especially for people who live alone, that sometimes I hear them say, "Oh, I just live alone. I don't want to cook for just me." Or I've seen people that cook this little bit, and it's like, there's too much trouble to cook for this much. So make mass production. Think mass production. Think refrigerator. Think freezer, so that you always have something handy. This is true for a family also. Therefore, we encourage our clients to make use of this energy conservation strategy. Strategy number 4, create a car pack. Strategy number 4, create a car pack. Of course, this is if you spend a lot of time in the car. Personally, I don't. I never did much, but there were times in my life that I spent, uh, at least at least 2 hours, maybe, yeah, 2 hours a day. So if you spend a significant amount of time in your car, we recommend that you prepare a car pack, a lunchbox containing healthy snacks. In this way, you can short circuit the energy conservation force when you are in the car and hungry. And then strategy number 5, getting help. For some families, it can make sense to get help. You don't have to hire a chef from a five-star hotel or a restaurant, but maybe you can hire a college student that will come to your house once or twice a week, and they will chop all the stuff, or they will make an easy recipe in a large quantity. Hiring a cook to prepare weekly quantities of healthful foods may be an option. It might be one of the best investments your family can make. To some, these suggestions may seem a little extreme. A weekly menu and shopping list may seem too restrictive. Hiring a part-time cook may appear to be not worth the expense. We recognize that these strategies ask us to go against our instincts. Our natural psychology encourages us to do what is easiest and to not plan ahead. Little wonder then that the average American family saves only 80 or 8 cents of its income, despite the necessity of saving and investing as a path to a better future and as a buffer against misfortune. Let's see what you are all saying. In your house, in your mouth, so true. A local grocery sent a coupon for free half-gallon of ice cream for my birthday. I wasn't going to get it, but then I thought, I could take it for Thanksgiving. Well, sadly, I got into it already. Yeah, it's so true, everyone. It's just so true. I have traveled in cars and I like to have a tape I can listen to. Okay. Someone says, in my house, I don't get to have a clean environment. I live with two junk food, sad eaters who think that I'm crazy for the way I eat. They are so trapped in their addictions that they can't see any other way. Well, yeah, yeah. There are strategies when you have junk food in your house. There are, like Dr. Lyle was saying in the webinar that I did with him. You could buy a small refrigerator and say, this is my refrigerator, and this is where I keep my food. Maybe that'll help you. It helped him. All right, so all animals are designed by nature to conserve energy, and humans are no exception. This means that behavior is guided in directions where there is where there is the least resistance, where the rewards are obtainable with the least effort. As a result, we now find ourselves in an environment that makes good choices increasingly difficult. Fast food, which requires little thought, modest expense, and almost no effort, is significantly more appealing to our energy conservation programming than is the prospect of preparing health promoting food. So, how do we take action? Well, a key strategy is to keep track To keep on track is to make health promoting choices as convenient as possible. It is useful to maintain the home as free of junk food as possible. So, what they were saying, if you cook, if you prepare your meals, you put a little thought about that. If you make large quantities, so there's always something available. That I can't tell you how important that is. And those things might help. So that's the end of chapter 10. And I do want to jump in and get started with chapter 11. But let me see if anybody here is saying anything. Okay, well, good. Thank you for typing questions here. Well, comments mostly. If you have any questions, please feel free to do so. And let's talk about chapter 11, which it's fascinating because a good amount of the chapter is talking about how cancer develops. And unfortunately, coronary disease and cancer now are the killers in our society. And they are both based largely on nutrition of what we put in our mouths. And so this chapter is brilliant how Dr. Lyle and Dr. Goldhammer explain it. So let's go on. Let's go to page 119 and see what it says. It says, in examining the fossil record of a period of history, many thousands years ago, we see evidence of a sudden explosion of innovation. New tools such as fish hooks and nets and pottery, together with cave paintings and jewelry and sculpture, began to appear. And he's talking about 50,000 to 100,000 years ago. These relics and tools tell us that their makers were beings that ponder both past and future. At about this time, there were anatomical changes associated with increasingly sophisticated language ability. Sometime not too long ago, a group of creatures were thinking and talking and doing things that we would recognize as like us. We should, because they were us. And they possessed a new survival tool, the modern human mind. So on page 120, where it's talking about the cognitive revolution, it says that early humans began to change the shape of nature rather than merely react to circumstances. For example, instead of using their hands to grab a fish, they invented fish hooks and harpoons. Instead of hiking for a drink of water, each time they were thirsty, they molded mud into jugs for water transport and storage. So this was a novel and revolutionary strategy in the Book of Life. It was to be the first of three revolutions in the human experiment that would result in our domination of life on Earth. One of them, of course, is the agriculture revolution. It's the fundamental reason why human society looks as it does today, in stark contrast to the hunter-gatherer lifestyle that was human life for all who lived before 8,500 BC. So the agricultural revolution really changed the path of history, human history. From the time of these first experiments with agriculture to the time of Christ, the human population exploded, increasing from about 6 million to 150 million in just 8,000 years. Without agriculture, this expansion would not have been possible, as the planet's wildlife could support only 10 million hunter-gatherers. By artificially increasing the caloric yield per acre, our population expanded prolifically. This could only have happened or accomplished by changing the shape of nature. With a world population of more than 150 million and growing, we have become the infestation of planet Earth. Our success allowed us to live in fixed communities and to increase our numbers, but this success had many unforeseen consequences, because what happens? What happens when we have increased number of people living together as communities? Well, we start to have diseases that are epidemic, such as malaria and cholera, and they were catastrophic consequences to this new lifestyle. And when humans began to traverse the globe with boats, they transported diseases to virgin environments with devastating results. So on page 124, it says the third revolution would be the culmination of the previous two and would result in newfound capabilities. It would make us the masters of the planet and of all its resources, but it would also make us and all life on Earth increasingly vulnerable to the limitations of our collective judgment. And then we have a discussion of the Industrial Revolution. And, that is, I'll leave that for you to read, because we've talked a little bit about that in previous chapters. But by the year 2000, this is page 127, by the year 2000, the world population had grown to 6 billion, with a B, a concentration of humanity 1,000 times greater than existed at the dawn of agriculture. But more importantly, of that thousandfold growth, half took place within 35 years. Can you imagine this? Only 35 years, and more than half of that growth happened in that amount of time. This success is the result of human innovation, the consequence of increased understanding in agriculture, medicine, sanitation, and this industrial production. No other creature on Earth has ever had this degree of success. We have left our ecological niche behind and now live in an artificial world of our own making. And this is something that I want to talk about. This is page 127. I think it's a very important page, because here we have to understand and really accept that the environment that we're living in is something that we have made up, and it's artificial. This is, having highly concentrated calories that combine fat and sugar, or salt and fat, or fat and flour and sugar. These things are never found combined in nature, never. So we as humans are out. We're not living in our environment that we were meant to live. I believe personally that a lot of the animals today, unless they're confined in a farm or something, they still have their, more or less, their environment intact. I mean, in some way, but we humans don't. We live in houses with electricity, with water that is not clean running water from a little stream. It goes to water plants, and I mean, it's all artificial, and we have so much artificial food and artificial everything. It's a very interesting page here. We no longer forage for plant food. We grow plants treated with pesticides. harvesting them at will. We no longer hunt wild game. We consume animals that live out their lives in feedlots injected with hormones so that we can get more pleasure for less effort. These animals live in artificially close quarters, eating contrived food supply protected from predators. Their artificial population densities leave them susceptible to another natural constraint, predation from microorganisms. But we have managed this problem as well. These animals are medicated with antibiotics so that infectious disease does not ravage these herds as they sure would in nature. More, and listen to this, everyone, more than 90% of all antibiotics produced are slated for animal administration. So it's just mind-boggling that more than 90% of all antibiotics are produced for animal administration. We no longer drink from pristine rivers of water naturally distilled as raindrops. We drink water from water treatment plants, from rivers and oceans used as dumping sites for concentrated sewage and industrial waste. And we breathe air not occasionally made impure by a random fire or volcanic eruption, but air that has been systematically assaulted by field burning, power generation, industrial activity, and the internal combustion engine. The extraordinary success of our species then has not come without a price, but unlike the subtle changes of centuries past, these recent changes have been widely noticed. Today, no educated person can ignore the undesirable consequences of our success. We have indeed successfully reshaped nature, but that reshaping has polluted our home. And so here we have two very philosophical questions. There are two primary questions to be faced on page 129. Of course, I'm always in the electronic version. And the first question is our artificial mastery of the Earth's resources marching us toward disaster as we overwhelm the balancing system of the Earth's ecology? This is a profound question that will require unbiased and careful science to answer, in the hope that we may act in time to protect our planet. This question about our changing relationship to the environment often seems too big to ponder, too big to grasp. We can exert influence with our pocketbooks and our votes, but we realize that it may or may not be enough. But a second question is this now. Are the environmental crises we have created, adulterated water and air, chemical contaminants in our food and in our environment, and increased sources of artificial radiation, health threats that are likely to seal our individual fate, regardless of our diet and life choices? It is to this personal and important question that we now turn. The single greatest threat to health within industrialized society is cardiovascular disease, a condition largely attributed to dietary excess. Together with cigarette smoking, it is the excessive consumption of fat and protein in general, and animal fat and animal protein in particular, that is at the root of most stroke and heart failure. The causes are quite clear. The solutions to avoiding this fate are within our personal control. But there is another major health threat with causes that seem mysterious. It destroys millions of lives annually. That threat is cancer, a disease that is at once both physically and psychologically devastating. Unlike vascular disease, which has been shown to be reversible through diet and lifestyle choices, cancer is too often a diagnosis with no hope. And I have to say that cancer, I think nowadays it touches all of us because we all know somebody that is going through this horrible disease. I have a friend that is my age, and it's very sad to see him going through several chemotherapy uh, sessions and how can I say, yeah, sessions and slots, I guess. Um, and Dr. Lyle here talks about how most of it is not genetic and it doesn't really have another source other than the tremendous amounts of animal fat and animal protein that gets accumulated over the years. What is cancer? Cancer is evidence that something has gone terribly wrong. Okay, and this is described here in page 130. The fabulous machinery of cell reproduction meant to last us 9 decades or more has gone awry. Bits of our cell reproduction machinery, sequences of a given cell's DNA, have become deranged and are dysfunctional. The cell reproduces too quickly. Okay, that's what it is. The cell reproducing too quickly and imprecisely, no longer following the correct reproduction instructions. In a matter of months or years, this imprecision becomes noticeable as a tumor or lesion. Very often, it is fatal. Nearly 25% of Americans will die from cancer of the breast, lung, colon, or prostate. Precisely how this happens is still, in part, a mystery. Some cancers are treatable, and modern medicine does indeed perform miracles every day. But for most cancer patients, modern medicine is still seeking answers to frustrating questions. For most cancers, we simply do not have effective treatment. For example, contrary to irresponsible propaganda, the success rate of breast cancer has not changed in 80 years, though the treatments have become increasingly unpleasant. Despite the escalating aggressiveness of surgery and chemotherapy, women do not live longer post diagnosis than they did in the 1920s, and more than 90% of women diagnosed with breast cancer will die of this disease. So, what do cancer and cardiovascular disease share in common? Well, it has causes that can be largely controlled with diet and lifestyle choices. These choices can determine our odds with respect to cancer, which puts this major threat largely within our personal control. And this is where we dive in now and talk about the great and genius nutritional biochemist T. Colin Campbell, which I'm sure all of you, if not most of you, have heard about the China study and many of the research that this man has done, and he's still alive, and with protein, especially protein from dairy, and especially the protein called casein, which is a protein that will promote cancer growth. So this is where we will pick up next week, because I think it's a too important a topic to go by in a shallow way. One of you says, a friend of mine just died from congestive heart failure and an infection in his leg that had been there for 3 years. Yeah. Well, I have to say that it is very difficult to see people around us, family and friends, suffer from these two diseases, although many others that are mostly reversible or controllable just by changing the way we eat. And we know that the food that we eat is delicious and has nothing to compare with the high fat, high sugar, high everything, high cholesterol foods that the standard American diet has. But it is many times not an easy topic to approach. One of you says, how do you feel about eating packaged soy products? I don't. I don't eat packaged anything unless I can recognize it. Like I could buy a package of oats because I see the oats. I don't know, a package of rice, but anything else that is that I can't recognize, like I couldn't recognize the soybean in a product that is packaged. So that's me, and I don't know if you ate that once or twice a year, if it would be damaging. But if it's something that you consume regularly, I would reconsider. That's my personal view. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining in today. And I hope, like I said at the beginning, that you will have a wonderful holiday. I sent an email earlier today with 3 videos with music that I recorded, because today is the International Day of Music and Musicians. Today is Saint Cecilia's Day, this patron saint of music and musicians. And I usually do a concert on this day. And this year I couldn't do it for many reasons, but I shared some past videos with you in an email that I sent earlier today. If you didn't get it, send me an email or look in your in your folders like spam or trash. It may be there. And if not, send me an email at info@plantemas.com. Plantemas is PLANT, like plant, and then EMUS.com, and I can send you that. All right, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next Monday as we finish this wonderful book club that we started about 2 months ago. Goodbye.